3 minutes ago, the Chinese National Space Administration detonated the calm illusion that NASA had been building for over a year. Without warning, without ceremony, China released a set of images of the interstellar object known as 3I/ATLAS. Images so sharp, so detailed, so impossibly revealing that they instantly tore through every carefully constructed public explanation NASA had offered. And in the first instant those images hit the global feed, something became immediately obvious. NASA hadn't just been cautious, they hadn't just been conservative. They had been hiding something so monumental that China's sudden disclosure now threatens to rewrite humanity's understanding of our place in the universe. The first image looked innocent enough, just a close-up of ATLAS's mottled icy crust. But the longer you stared, the harder it became to accept what you were seeing. Beneath the speckled shadows and fractured ridges, there was pattern. Not naturally repeating mineral veins or cracks formed from thermal stress, but alignment. Right angles, clean geometric corridors of density that no comet should ever display. China's caption was only 2 words long, "Not natural." And across social media, scientists who had spent their lives defending NASA's cautious approach fell silent. They knew exactly what they were looking at, even if they couldn't admit it yet. The second image was worse. A radar slice that peeled back nearly 70 meters of crust to reveal a network of interlaced ribs. Solid, evenly spaced, metallic-looking struts forming a lattice that wrapped around the interior of the object. No comet scholars anywhere on Earth had ever seen anything remotely like it. China's scanners, which were far more advanced than many believed, had caught Atlas in a moment when its rotation slowed just enough to give them a clean, directional scan. And what they detected shouldn't have been inside a rock. It should have been inside a vessel. Before NASA could respond, anonymous engineers inside the Jet Propulsion Laboratory began leaking messages, screenshots of frantic internal chats showing supervisors urging staff to avoid public comment, delete prior Atlas threads, and prepare for coordinated media containment. One leaked message was only 6 words long, but those 6 words sent shockwaves through every scientific community on the planet. China has the images we buried. The question was no longer whether NASA concealed the truth. The question was why. The third Chinese image provided the answer. Atlas wasn't just emitting heat from solar radiation, it was pulsing. Every 11 minutes, it released a synchronized narrowband thermal signature from a point near its equator, something NASA had labeled random sublimation pockets in earlier public statements. But in the Chinese presentation, those pulses were shown overlaid with time-stamped telemetry. The pulses formed a repeating frequency, structured, modulated, consistent. It was a signal, and NASA had known. As the world scrambled to interpret the images, China released a fourth. A color-enhanced trinary composite showing the illuminated side of Atlas with unmatched clarity. Across one region, previously dismissed as a shadowed depression, China revealed an engraving-like series of grooves forming shapes no one expected, symbols. Symbols that, once magnified, bore uncanny resemblance to Proto-Sumerian iconography. Sharp wedges, crescent-like curves, arrangements that echoed tablets found in ancient Mesopotamia. Symbols referenced in myths connected to the Anunnaki, the same line of story researchers tied to the supposed tomb beneath the Iraqi sands discovered months earlier. It didn't matter whether those myths were real or imagined. What mattered was that the shapes on ATLAS weren't geological. Within minutes, a second leak from NASA surfaced. An internal memo marked Level 5 Restricted. The memo acknowledged receiving surface irregularity data indicating non-random morphological alignment nearly 10 months ago. It instructed team members to suppress visual anomalies in all public releases until further notice, citing international stability concerns. The memo even referenced potential cultural contamination, a phrase that instantly raised questions. Contamination of whom? And with what? China wasn't finished. They released a fifth image, this time a spectral material analysis. It revealed that Atlas contained metallic hydrogen, not in scattered pockets but structured into a framework. Metallic hydrogen, stable and in engineered formation, implied one thing: technology. Something intentional, something impossible to produce naturally in the cold emptiness between stars. And while NASA had hinted vaguely at interesting compositional properties during their occasional press briefings, they had never mentioned this. The omission was now unforgivable. Around the world, universities scrambled. Live streams exploded. Forums shut down under traffic loads. Theories flew like wildfire, none of them able to outpace the rising realization that we were witnessing the exposure of something far older, far more engineered, and far more significant than the human race had ever prepared for. And then China delivered the sixth image, the one that broke everything. This image was a motion-stabilized capture from their Haigong 2 deep space array, showing Atlas emitting more than heat pulses. It was emitting directed bursts of radio energy. They traveled in a narrow beam, sweeping across space like a lighthouse signal. But the beam wasn't random, it was aiming, and the data clearly showed what it was aiming at: Earth, specifically Earth's orbital region. And then the unthinkable line in the official Chinese statement appeared. Signal is repeating, pattern consistent with intentional transmission. NASA's silence became unbearable. Social media overflowed with demands for a response. Governments pressured the US State Department, but instead of answering, NASA locked down every Atlas-related portal behind new authentication firewalls. Even public Atlas pages on NASA's website suddenly redirected to generic 404 errors. It was a digital blackout, and it only escalated suspicion. China's move had forced the world into a confrontation with truth, and NASA was still trying to pretend darkness could staple itself shut. While China broadcast their findings to the world, their researchers uploaded another staggering discovery. In their long-range imaging of the space behind Atlas, something else appeared. A second object, smaller, dimmer, following Atlas at a consistent distance. Unlike Atlas's tumbling, this smaller object maintained a stable orientation, as though it were adjusting itself. And when the Chinese adjusted the filters, they noted that the object gave off tiny flashes, micro-thrust corrections. That meant propulsion. That meant intelligence. In the global race to understand the unfolding situation, telescopes in Europe and South America confirmed China's detection. The smaller object had been hiding in Atlas's shadow for months. But because NASA dominated data channels, its existence had never been released. The revelation was devastating. It meant NASA hadn't merely withheld evidence of internal structure. They had withheld the presence of a companion. Before panic could spread, China uploaded the most controversial piece of evidence yet, a captured sample of the radio signal from ATLAS. They displayed the waveform on live television. It wasn't static. It wasn't noise. It contained structure, rhythmic steps, harmonic repetitions, layered frequency ramps that aligned perfectly with known mathematical sequences. Not random, not natural, purposeful. The next leak from NASA arrived only minutes later, a transcript of a closed-door emergency meeting. The transcript revealed scientists arguing about whether releasing the Atlas signal to the public would trigger mass hysteria. One researcher insisted the signal resembled a directed intersystem handshake. Another argued the signal contained rotational mapping instructions. A third declared, if China reveals the symbol match, we are finished. They were already finished. As journalists scrambled to chase the story, China clarified that the markings on Atlas matched not only Proto-Sumerian shapes, but specific tablets excavated from ancient sites, tablets referencing messengers who traveled upon the stone that sings. These tablets had long been dismissed as myth. Now, paired with Atlas's messages and internal structure, they raised questions no nation wanted to ask aloud. Who had carved the symbols on Atlas, and how did the ancient world know? In the midst of public chaos, Atlas changed course. Observatories detected a subtle, deliberate correction of its trajectory, a shift impossible for a passive comet. Suddenly, the object was no longer drifting predictably. It was aligning. The new trajectory drew a straight line toward a point just inside Earth's orbital path. Scientists began calculating impact probabilities, but the numbers didn't align with collision. Atlas wasn't aiming to hit Earth. It was aiming to pass close, far too close. China released another image capturing Atlas mid-rotation, revealing a previously hidden side. The new angle showed a massive hexagonal scar, perfectly formed, perfectly symmetrical. A plate, a hatch, or the remains of something that once opened. The edges weren't cracked like natural formations. They were fused, and around the perimeter, etched into the icy rock, were additional symbols, some matching shapes found in ancient Sumerian carvings, others resembling unknown star patterns. Across the world, astrophysicists tried to maintain public calm, insisting that ATLAS's artificial features didn't necessarily imply a threat. But their attempts were drowned by the release of the next Chinese measurement. Atlas was accelerating. Not slightly, not due to outgassing, but consistently, as though driven by internal force. The smaller object behind it responded by tightening its formation, adjusting its speed to match Atlas's shift. They were coordinated, connected. Meanwhile, another set of leaked NASA documents appeared online, showing that the US had detected those accelerations early, but had labeled them non-public anomalies pending comprehensive assessment. One bold analyst had written in the margins, "We know what it is, but we can't say it." That line became the most quoted text on the internet for hours. China pressed forward, broadcasting new mid-range scans showing the internal lattice structure extending deeper than previously thought. Their team believed the lattice acted like reinforcements, perhaps the skeleton of an ancient construct. But then they unveiled something even more shocking: a cylindrical chamber embedded deep within ATLAS, lined with reflective material and containing 3 perfectly spherical voids. The spheres weren't filled with ice or dust. They were empty, vacant compartments, designed compartments. Rumors spread rapidly that these voids were once storage, or habitation, or something else, something older than Earth's recorded history, something that had crossed interstellar distances long before humanity developed writing. NASA's internal panic intensified. Scientists were now arguing not about whether Atlas was artificial, but who or what made it. One line in a leaked message stood out: "We should have destroyed the early scans. This is going to unravel everything." But China had already unraveled it. With tension reaching a global peak, China released their 8th and most dramatic image: an ultra-high-resolution composite stitched from over 900 frames. It showed a portion of Atlas where the crust had cracked from solar heating. Beneath the split surface, even more geometric structures emerged: panels, ridges, and symmetrical grooves arranged in circular arrays. And in the center of one array was something unmistakable: a raised emblem, shaped like an eye enclosed in a triangle. An emblem that matched carvings found in the ruins beneath the Iraqi desert months earlier. Experts in ancient cultures broke into live broadcasts, claiming the symbol corresponded to depictions of the Watchers, a mythological class of beings described as descending from the sky to teach early humanity. For decades, the claims had been dismissed as pseudoscience. Now the symbol appeared on an interstellar object. The world erupted. Protests began outside NASA headquarters. Crowds chanted for transparency. But NASA remained silent until a short, trembling statement finally appeared. They acknowledged that new international data suggests non-natural characteristics of ATLAS, but insisted they had withheld information only to avoid premature conclusions. The internet didn't buy it for a second. While political fallout intensified, the Chinese array captured something no one expected: a bright energy spike from the small trailing object. It released a beam of light visible even in filtered composites. Then, the beam struck Atlas, and Atlas responded with its own pulse. Communication, coordination, synchronization between 2 ancient constructs traveling through space like paired instruments performing a rehearsed duet. Atlas's acceleration increased again. This time, the small object surged ahead slightly, as though guiding Atlas into a new vector. Astronomers recalculated its path. Their results were stunning. Atlas was no longer heading for a simple near-Earth pass. It was aligning for a slingshot maneuver around Earth's orbit itself, one that would bring it within an unprecedented, dangerously close range. It wasn't coming to crash. It was coming to look. China's next image revealed the clearest interior view yet. Inside the cylindrical chamber, faint reflective surfaces glimmered, as if coated with a substance designed to preserve whatever once rested inside. The voids were arranged symmetrically, like cradles. For what? Artifacts, biological forms, navigation cores? No one knew. But the empty compartments raised another question. Were they empty when Atlas left its origin? Or did something leave them? As global panic simmered into dread, analysts discovered that Atlas's pulsed signal was growing stronger. What had once been a faint whisper now blasted across multiple radio bands. China released the updated waveform. Its pattern had changed. What once resembled a call now resembled a countdown. The harmonic steps were shortening, the intervals tightening. NASA scrambled to intercept the signal and analyze its changes, but the Chinese release came first. The signal, when translated through mathematical ratios, mapped a sequence of 3-dimensional coordinates. Coordinates pointing not to Earth, but to a point just beyond the lunar orbit, as if something was supposed to be there, as if something had once been waiting. Meanwhile, the small, trailing object flashed again, but this time, the light wasn't directed at Atlas. It was directed at Earth. Observatories captured the pulse as it spread outward, thin as a whisper, but infinitely precise. China's analysts confirmed it wasn't random, it was encoded. And when decrypted, it matched the same repeating geometric pattern found in the tomb beneath the Iraqi sands, a pattern associated with a star map. Theories went wild. Had Atlas visited our system before? Had ancient civilizations witnessed it? Had they carved its symbols to record its passing? Or had they been contacted? No scientist wanted to answer on camera. Too many were afraid of either being wrong or being too right. As panic mounted, Atlas passed another threshold. For the first time in recorded observation, its rotation locked. It stopped tumbling. It stabilized its orientation directly toward Earth. The small trailing object shifted slightly, positioning itself like a satellite. China released a composite of the moment Atlas locked its rotation. The image showed the emblem, the triangular eye, facing Earth like a beacon. The world waited for what came next, and ATLAS responded. It released its strongest thermal pulse yet, so powerful that it briefly overloaded sensors across multiple continents. When readings stabilized, a new detail emerged. Hidden beneath the thermal wash was a secondary frequency, one that matched almost perfectly the rhythmic patterns found in human DNA coding sequences, biological fractals, embedded in a transmission from an alien object. Theories erupted instantly. Some said it was coincidence, others insisted it was intentional, but then China released the final, devastating image, their clearest, most unaltered scan. The image cut deeper into Atlas's core than any prior attempt, and at the very bottom of the internal chamber, beneath the three spherical voids, lay a plate, flat, metallic, engraved with lines identical to those found on ancient tablets from Mesopotamia and the tomb said to belong to Gilgamesh, lines that reference the travelers of the deep and the returning stone. The implication was unavoidable. Atlas wasn't just a vessel, it was a relic, a returning relic. NASA could no longer deny it. China's images broke every barrier of secrecy. And as Atlas approached Earth on its accelerating path, with its signals growing stronger and its symbols now exposed, humanity found itself standing at the edge of a revelation far older than civilization itself. Something had been here before, something had visited, something had left its marks in our oldest myths. And now, that something was coming back. Whether Atlas carried a message, a warning, or a memory, no nation was ready, no government could hide. And as the object streaked closer with each passing hour, one truth became unavoidable. The universe had been watching us far longer than we ever imagined, and now, at last, it had chosen to reveal itself again. The world braced for the moment Atlas would complete its impossible trajectory, its companion guiding it like an escort. Telescopes everywhere locked onto the object as it grew brighter in the night sky. Humanity stared upward, breathless, terrified, mesmerized, and as the final pulses from Atlas echoed across space, one thing became clear. Whatever NASA had hidden was irrelevant now. Whatever China had revealed was only the beginning, because Atlas was no longer sending a countdown, it was sending an arrival.